Hey everyone, Wontonton here, and pre-release season is upon us once again, and I thought I would make a quick guide to help you draft the best deck possible. I personally really enjoy this format since it is a nice change of pace from the regular meta decks you see in locals, and you get to see some pretty cool combos and board states that you normally wouldn't be able to. A quick rundown of the rules for those of you who are unfamiliar with the format. One Piece pre-release events are played in what's called a sealed format. This means that you don't bring a deck to the tournament like you normally do. Instead, your local game store or tournament organizer will provide everyone with 6 booster packs from the new set, and you will build a deck of 40 cards from these 6 packs. The only exception is your leader, and you can bring any leader you want to the tournament, or you can use one of the leaders you pulled from your 6 packs. There is no color restriction to your deck, meaning that you can use any combination of cards you want, so just because you play a red Luffy as your leader doesn't mean you can only use red cards. Keep in mind though that other card restrictions still apply, so if a card mentions a specific type of card like Supernova or Straw Hat for example, or if an effect only applies to blue event cards, you still have to follow these rules. Finally, you don't have to follow the 4 card limit rule. You can have as many copies of a card as you want in your deck. And don't forget, most importantly, you get to keep everything you pull. Tournament winners also get this very nice promo VV card stamped with the pre-release winner on it. Official signups for the pre-release start on June 9th for the Bandai app. I definitely recommend checking your local game stores, checking their websites, or calling them up and seeing if they have any alternate forms of signup. Because, for example, some of the local game stores here, they're taking signups not through the Bandai app, but instead by purchasing a ticket through their website. So definitely check around. Now that we got the rules out of the way, let's get started. First off, we'll start off with choosing a leader. You should definitely stick to leaders who have solid abilities that you can just use in most situations. So leaders like Zoro, Luffy, Kid, and Katakuri are definitely strong choices. And I think that's just the golden rule of this format in general when it comes to picking out cards for your deck. You do generally just want to stay away from cards that need specific synergies or have a condition that's too difficult to meet, because consistency is definitely not something you'll find too much in this format. So a leader like Smoker, for example, where he needs a 0 cost, in this format you may not necessarily pull the cards needed to get a character to 0, and you can't always guarantee that they'll have a 1 drop that they'll just drop down to. Or another leader like Kinemon, where he needs Land of Wano cards specifically in order to use his ability. Moving on to the characters, let's start off with the backbone of your deck, the vanilla cards. In regular constructed, you do see some vanilla cards used in certain decks, but a vast majority of the cards used have some sort of effect that synergizes with the rest of the deck. In this format, you can't rely on that synergy, and so you need cards that are individually strong without any additional help or enablers. Vanilla cards are great examples of that because they are given better stats to compensate for their lack of effects. They're all going to have 1,000 counter and provide a nice beefy body they can use to pressure your opponent's life or board, since they usually do have more power than a character of the same cost that has an effect. And you never have to worry about just dropping them and losing out on the value of their effects, so they are a great way of building up your side of the board. So overall, they are going to be the meat of your deck, since you can rely on them to provide a solid body on the board that you can play at any time and can be used as 1,000 counters if needed. I do like to keep my vanilla curve mostly between a 3 to 6 cost range, since I think too many 1 to 2 cost vanillas are just dead draws late game, even in the mid game, and too many vanillas above 6 might just end up clogging your hand. About a little bit over a third of my deck are vanillas, and I think that is a good number to have. Next are the cards with effects, and as I mentioned earlier, you do want to grab cards that have an ability that can be used in most situations. So a card like Lucci, for example, may not be the best card, just because in this format you can't really guarantee that you'll have 2 CP9 cards in your trash. You can't even really guarantee you'll draw 2 CP9 cards. Unless, of course, you open your packs and you find like 20 CP9 cards there, then by all means just forget everything I've said so far and just lean all into your CP9. In the last set, in one of the tournaments, I made it to the finals building a Whitebeard deck just because I opened like 25 Whitebeard cards and two of them were Moby Dicks. But based on regular pulls, you're at most probably going to have about 4 or 5 CP9 cards, and that's just too small of a number to hit for Lucci. And as a result, he's gonna end up just being either a dead card in your hand, or you're gonna end up playing him as a understated vanilla card. Some examples of characters with good effects in this format would be cards like Krieg or Katakuri, where they have abilities that you could use at any time. They're just generally strong, solid abilities. And when I say good cards, you don't even have to go for these big home run win condition type cards like Krieg or Katakuri. Those aren't the only types of good effects. Just anything that has a decent ability that you can use at any time just to squeeze out a little bit of advantage or value here or there is what we're really looking for here, and is really going to make up the bulk of your effect cards. So a card like Audio, for example, maybe is not the best ability, but if you time it properly, can definitely do a lot of damage. Or a card like Virgo, where his ability makes him a very sticky character that's very difficult to deal with, especially in a format like this where your opponent might not necessarily have access to cards that can remove Virgo. And to round out the last quarter of your deck are your blockers and your 2k counters. These are the defensive cards that are going to be used to protect you and your characters. There's not much more to say about this other than I like to have an even split between my blockers and 2k counters, but of course you won't always be able to help that since you're at the mercy of your pulls. And for the blockers, you don't really care about the effects because you really just want them for the block. And any additional effect that triggers or activates is just bonus at that point. As for event cards, the same general rule applies, but I think that the amount of events and types of events you run is really dependent on your playstyle. In this format, I like being more proactive, so a card like Top Knot is a card I might consider. And because I like to be more proactive, I might find myself low on cards, so Sanji's Pilaf is another one I might pick up. If you're a more defensive player, maybe you want to load up on more counter event cards, for example. Personally, I'm also very conservative with the amount of events I would add, and I would probably not add more than 4 to 5, since they might just clog your hand. And just to finish off the video, I thought I'd quickly just show you guys the deck that I drafted to win a pre-release winner Smoker during the last pre-release event in OP2. In that tournament, I ran Zoro. Here you can see all the vanillas I use. I used quite a bit, and I did try to stay mostly within the 3 to 6 Dawn curve. I did have a little bit more 2-drops and even a 1-drop in here, just because of Zoro's ability. It's very easy for these 2-drops to become 5,000 power and just swing even at the enemy leader. Here are all the effect cards that I drafted. I did get very lucky that I drafted a Whitebeard. He's a very strong card in this format. But as for the rest of the cards, you can see that we did just follow the general rule. We don't need to go for huge winning effects, just solid cards with solid effects. So something like Minotaur, for example, has a double attack and KO effect, just persistent effects that can help you eke out a little bit of advantage against your opponent. Or something like Iska, where she's kind of like a mini Basil Hawkins. You can sometimes get a lot of value out of her. Or something even like Whitey Bay, so they can't just hide their characters by leaving them standing. And here we have the blockers and the 2k counters that I used. And here are the 2 event cards I used. There are only 2 because, as I said, I am kind of conservative with the amount of events I use. I like more proactive ones, and unfortunately I didn't draft too many. And so Arabesque Breakfast is the type of proactive card I look for, where I'm able to maintain tempo and board controls, but just by bouncing back a 4 cost or less. And Meteor Volcano I was just thinking maybe I could snipe a 1-drop from them, or maybe I could get lucky and get it off of a trigger. And that's it for me, everyone. I hope you found this guide useful, and I wish everyone luck in the upcoming pre-release tournaments. This is by no means a definitive guide. It's not the only way to build a deck in this format, but it is the general philosophy that I personally follow. So hopefully you guys find some success with it. If you guys have any questions or comments, leave them down below. And if you guys like this type of content, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.